Hello, this is Angela with Progress Permaculture, and that is a slumbering Athena behind me. Today I am sitting on my living room floor because I'm working on teaching myself a new skill, and it's a skill that's been a little bit frustrating for me, and I've had some hiccups as I'm trying to, figure out the process, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I thought this is a good opportunity to pause and dive into the topic of autodidacticism and why it is so important, not only for those of us that are interested in permaculture and sustainable living movements, but also just to enrich ourselves in adulthood at any phase of your life, why it's so crucial that you be able to become an autodidact. So let's talk about that for just a few minutes. So what is autodidacticism? Basically, it's a big, fancy term for the skill of being able to teach yourself things. An autodidact is someone who is their own teacher, someone who doesn't need to passively absorb information from a lecturer, from a teacher, from some kind of master of a subject in order to be able to gain mastery themselves over it. And autodidact is a word that gets thrown around a lot in unschooling circles. I'm sure I have thrown it around in a number of my unschooling videos because it's so crucial to those of us that are learning outside of traditional educational paradigms, that we be able to hunt down and accumulate knowledge that we need to get about life. An autodidact is someone who has learned how to learn. And there's someone who is not reliant on systems, on people who are experts, on those kind of institutions that gatekeep information in order to be able to learn valuable skills and knowledge for themselves. There's no great mystery to being an autodidact. There's no, need to even use that kind of a term. Maybe it sounds a little bit smug and intellectual to say like, oh, I'm an autodidact. When you really are just a self-taught person. You're a person who is motivated and able to go and teach themselves things without having to pay for a formal class. I have an old series of videos where I talk about some of the issues with PDCs, which are permaculture design certificate courses, and whether it's really requisite that we have somebody who is an expert that we pay to teach us information, or whether we are able to go chase down that information ourselves. And I don't mean that autodidacts are people who create knowledge and skills out of thin air, right? It just means that you aren't a passive recipient. Someone is not funneling knowledge into you. I don't require a lecturer. I don't require, having to enroll in a formal program in order to learn something. An autodidact is very self-paced. She's very highly motivated, and she has the skill set to know how to track down information that she doesn't know. It is not only knowing where the gaps are in your skills and knowledge, but then also knowing like, where do I go to figure this out? So a lot of unschooling for us has been teaching our kids, if you don't know something in life and someone isn't there to explain it to you, and to hold your hand in the process of learning it, how do you go chase down that information that you need in order to function in your life? And I think it's really an important and invaluable skill in permaculture to be an autodidact, because so much of permaculture is not what you learn in a PDC, and everything in a PDC you can just learn by reading Bill Mollison's Permaculture 1 and 2, and videos like this on YouTube, and the veritable fount of information that has already been written by permaculture authors, both like permaculture magazines and literature and blogs and folks sharing their experience through digital media. But the reason that it's so important is because permaculture is so much about site-specific design for your particular geolocation, for your particular community and the own needs of your household, right? You are a unique individual. Your site is unique. And therefore, what you're going to learn in a book or a course is insufficient. And you have to teach yourself skills so that you can tailor your design for your site and your needs. So much of permaculture is observe and interact. And autodidacts are all about learning by observing, by non-traditional means, by interacting with their environment and other people. And I think that those skills become really highly applicable to permaculture. So there may be some background noise as my 14-year-old is playing Minecraft online with his friends, which is again, like, they wanted to learn how to mod in Minecraft and how to code and had to go learn that information for themselves. So when you are an autodidact, you are saying, I don't have the answers in front of me. I don't have a teacher to funnel that information into me. I need to know how to chase it down. I need to know how to go find what I need and apply it in my real life. This is really important. Yes, we need to be chasing our passions. Yes, we need to be chasing down those skills and that knowledge set that we need to run our real lives. That work is never ending. That joy of that journey is never ending. But in the pursuit of those things, we need to be able to evaluate our sources. Now, just because you are learning something from a formal institution, that doesn't mean that source is credible either. There are lots of professors who have gone on to produce all kinds of wackadoo conspiracy theory stuff and put it out in the universe. There's all kinds of folks who are considered experts in their field that publish absolute woo or publish completely baseless, I almost said airport books, because I'm referencing my favorite podcast right now, If Books Could Kill. But yes, lots of people put out non-credible material. Being able to evaluate whether a source is credible, whether the information that you're reading is trustworthy. We live in an era where everybody says do your own research. We aren't actually doing our own research. Unless you are conducting scientific experiments in your garden, you are not doing your own research. You are relying on the opinions or the research of others, and you need to be able to evaluate your sources. And that is so important in an era when everything feels like a pipeline to some kind of radical ideology, when everything feels like some kind of conspiracy theory that you are going to get funneled into before you realize where you're going, and then you'll be radicalized and your whole worldview will shift, and the idea of how you view sources and how you view your neighbors will be completely transformed, and you will have to essentially deprogram from that. I cannot stress enough the importance of being able to discern, of being able to evaluate whether something is peer-reviewed, whether there's data to back up what's being said, whether the statistics and data you're being quoted have been cherry-picked and manipulated. Knowing the quality of the data, whether it is qualitative or quantitative, that you are absorbing, and understanding whether there is, because there always is, an agenda behind what you're reading and how you can trust it is so important, especially when we're looking at philosophical things, not just practical skills. Follow your passions, follow your needs, learn how to evaluate sources. The fourth thing is being able to craft your own schedule, your own framework, your own timeline. Now, for folks with increased executive function, this may be easier than for folks who struggle with that. But autodidacts are self-paced. We are saying, I'm not using this semester schedule. I'm not using this set timeline someone else has given me. I know how best to pace myself when it comes to learning a skill. Maybe it's something I want to set aside everything else for the day and focus all my energy into a deep dive into one subject. Maybe it is a slow burn where you read a little bit at a time and say, I have a long time before I need to accumulate all of this knowledge. Being able to evaluate for yourself the pace at which you learn best and the timeline that you need to establish is a big part of being an autodidact. You're not relying on an institution's schedule of when you need to learn things and how long it will take you. This is a big one for unschoolers where we talk about how folks develop at different levels. And I don't just mean children, I mean adults, right? So we may not be developmentally ready, emotionally ready. We may not have healed from our past trauma. We may not have matured enough as people to tackle certain subjects when society tells us that we should or thinks that we should be ready to cover those subjects. Being an autodidact, again, knowing yourself, your passions, knowing where you're at in life and your own maturity, and then being able to craft a schedule and assess how you want to learn. Why is it so important that those of us that are interested in sustainable living movements become autodidacts? When we are looking at creating a world that is in many ways going to require us to dismantle formal institutions that currently exist, institutions that exploit people and the planet. When we are looking at revolutionary concepts, and for folks who think that permaculture isn't revolutionary, that it isn't political, it really, really is, because the systems that are set up, that are entrenched within our society, the whole societal framework is diametrically opposed to sustainable and regenerative living. And so we're going to have to dismantle those systems and rebuild something better in order to create a truly regenerative community of people. We're looking at that kind of a setup. You know that institutions are not going to teach you what you need to know. And again, I just want to caution against going down conspiracy theory roads here, but the institutions are not going to teach you what you need to know. They're going to want to reinforce the system, reinforce the status quo. The system is designed to reinforce the folks who benefit from it. And that is not the planet, and it is not us as individuals, and it is not us as communities. And so that means we have to use our own journey as an autodidact to go around those systems to learn the information that we need, whether it's being gatekept by institutions or whether that information is just kept under lock and key or whether nobody is funding research for it. If we are looking to create a resilient world where we actually focus on sustainability and regeneration instead of profit and consumption, then we're gonna have to go outside formal frameworks. And that's why it's crucial to become an autodidact. I will also add, because what I have been working on today is a craft. I've been teaching myself something so that I can help teach my daughter a weaving skill, actually. Not something revolutionary, not something that is going to transform the way that we grow food or the way we organize our communities. Being an autodidact is also so important for our own well-being, our own enrichment, that we continue to learn new things, that we are old dogs who can learn new tricks is so important. It helps us, our minds stay young. It helps us stay engaged with our community, engaged with our own interests, engaged with our own internal self. It helps us keep pushing forward so that we have a higher quality of life and so that we continue to work on refining ourselves as individuals, growing, stretching ourselves. And therefore, we are more open and receptive to growing and stretching our communities and engaging outside of ourselves. So I think it's really important for the big picture, for the big permaculture picture, that we are autodidacts, but also in the small ways in our own life, in terms of our own quality of life. It's also really important in terms of our own enjoyment of this one life that we get. So anyway, I hope that was helpful for you. I will link some information down below in the description, more about autodidacticism. Maybe that will be helpful for you. And I will be back very soon for my permaculture garden in Portland, Oregon. Thanks. Oh, don't forget to click like and subscribe. I'm almost to 30,000 subscribers. Thanks.